Oh, crap.
The MCU continues to grow bigger and more dangerous, and frankly, I'm a little worried about some of our favorite characters. I'm afraid we'll be getting some big Iron Man or Black Widow-esque endings in the next few years, and it begs the question just who is on the chopping block. Which characters do you think will most likely perish in Phase 5 or 6? Well, let's take some time today to discuss the characters with the biggest targets on their backs, as well as how they might leave the MCU forever. Let's get started right now. Okay, so as I talk about this list, I think there's two camps that each entry can fall into. The first are characters who have been around for so long that it would be weird if they were just written out of the MCU, so an epic sacrifice might be better overall for the character. Like, can you imagine if Tony Stark or Steve Rogers just stopped appearing in movies because RDJ and Chris Evans didn't want to do this anymore?
You know damn well why. Back off.
So everyone would say stuff like, oh, it's a shame Tony couldn't be here, but he's off planet right now, and just do that forever? No, that wouldn't make sense.
What are we, a team?
Sometimes these characters need conclusions that write them out of the story forever. And sorry, having them die in battle is much easier than having them go back in time to give up the superhero life to be with the one you love. When you take that route, everyone's brain suddenly breaks since you start arguing about the rules of time travel and whether it was in character for that character to do that or not. Anyways, my point is that we need to talk about Thor. He's the last one of the original main trio. Sorry, Hulk. And it's unclear what his future holds. You have to think if Ragnarok and Thor's soft reboot didn't happen, they would have considered ending Thor's story in Endgame like Tony and Steve. But thanks to the character's fresh lease on life and reinvigoration thanks to Hemsworth and Taika Waititi, Thor gets to continue on to have more space adventures. But what happens when Chris Hemsworth decides he doesn't want to spend an ungodly amount of time sculpting his body to look like a literal Greek god anymore? What's the best ending for his character? Well, wouldn't an epic sacrifice be in order? You can't just push Thor off to the side and say he's always busy in the future. Plus, maybe an epic sacrifice in the name of beating Kang would be the best way to end his arc? Charting his journey in the MCU is wild. He spends a few movies on a quest to become worthy enough to be King of Asgard. Then he learns that he can be King of Asgard, but Asgard is a people, not a place, and has to destroy his homeworld. Then he's king for about 4 seconds until Thanos comes and basically ruins his life by slaughtering his best friend, his brother, and most of his people. Then he sinks into a deep depression when he's not able to stop the catastrophic snap and wallows around for a few years until he realizes that he wants to go on adventures to find his purpose. And then he has to lose the one final person in his life that he absolutely loves in order to be reborn like a third time, where he's now okay with the loss in his life and can move on from it, while also caring for a new daughter. Geez, that's a lot. I didn't mean this first entry to be so long, and me mentioning that only makes it longer, I know, but I felt it was important to trace Thor's arc to the end, with maybe his one final swan song being that he sacrifices himself for a universe he's given so much for. It would cement him as one of the universe's greatest heroes forever, and finally let him find a bit more peace. So just be on the lookout to see if his daughter Love suddenly stops needing him. That's when we should become worried about Thor's future.
I'm fine, okay? We're fine, aren't we?
No, all good here, mate.
Okay, the other camp of characters who could bite the bullet are the ones who would be sad to lose, but also aren't that vital to the story where a lot of things would change as a result of their demise. Their deaths would be more like catalysts in order to inspire our heroes and wouldn't mean the end of profitable franchises. They're called Phil Coulson types. So who's the biggest Phil Coulson of the MCU right now?
Want to find out?
Well, I think arguably that's Hank Pym. The Ant-Man and the Wasp team are in serious trouble. They're about to face Kang the Conqueror in their Quantumania movie, and just from a story perspective, Kang needs to make a big impact here. He's going to be the big bad of the MCU going forward, so how lame would it be if he has a lackluster debut and is easily defeated? No, he needs to make a statement here, and the biggest way for the MCU to put some heat on the villain would be for him to take out Hank Pym. And look, I love Hank, but his character arc is kind of over, right?
I was good, wasn't I?
I mean, he started off as this grumpy old man who seemingly lost both his wife and the love of his daughter, but over the course of 2 movies, we've seen him get back both of those things. There's no conflict or goal that he's chasing, which means removing him from the equation wouldn't be a problem for the MCU. The only thing really keeping Hank alive right now is the tone of the Ant-Man franchise.
So now what?
Historically, those characters have always been a bit goofier, and the stakes have been lower. Would they really mess up that formula by having Kang brutally kill Hank? I mean, no, right? But what makes more sense is that Hank sacrifices himself at the end of Ant-Man Quantumania to keep Kang at bay for a little while longer. That way, it gives Ant-Man a few movies to try to assemble the Avengers in order to be ready for Kang to fully break through to our side. Would you be sad to see Hank go? I'm surprised Hulk has been hulking for this long. I think Mark Ruffalo is one of our finest actors, and he's also the one who I wouldn't be surprised to hear that he's tired of acting like a rampaging beast with a bunch of dots on his face. I think it was pretty plausible that the Infinity Gauntlet snap would end up killing Hulk permanently, or give a much better resolution to the Hulk and Bruce Banner conflict, but nope, that more or less is fine now, and Smart Hulk seems here to stay for quite some time.
Shut the front door.
But that can't be the case forever, right? If they're not going to do anything interesting with the Hulk character, then maybe the best thing to do would be to kill him off.
Oh, it's amazing, man. It's like
Please note, at the time of writing this entry, episode 2 of She-Hulk just aired, which ended with Hulk flying off to Sakaar willingly for some unknown reason.
Don't even.
If I had to guess, the only thing that would get Smart Hulk back on Sakaar on his own accord is a child he fathered while there. In the comics, Hulk does have a kid in the Planet Hulk storyline while on Sakaar, who's named Scar, and Scar could have a bright future for the MCU. But what about Smart Hulk? It would be dark if Scar somehow eliminates our Hulk, then comes to Earth to seek revenge in some sort of tweaked World War Hulk storyline. But at least then, Bruce Banner would face some consequences for completely removing the Hulk personality from his body, especially when it was established that Hulk is definitely his own person. Or if we want to go the sweeter ending for Bruce, maybe in the end, Hulk will sacrifice himself somehow for Bruce, allowing Bruce to be purged of the Hulk's presence forever. Hawkeye jokes aren't even that cool anymore. Remember before when it was easier to make fun of the guy holding a bow and arrow among super soldiers, billionaires, Asgardians, and raging Hulk monsters? Yeah, can't do that now because Hawkeye is pretty cool, but he's in dangerous territory right now. Out of the game and retired? Check. Is there another protege in the wings ready to take his place? Check, check. Would his death be sad for all of us who have grown up with Hawkeye, but someone who, if they killed off, wouldn't change or affect the narrative that much? Check, check, check. Put that all together and Hawkeye doesn't have the best odds. The only thing really keeping him alive right now is the whole family he fought so hard to get back. That's why I think he's safe, but again, we don't know what Kang is capable of. Maybe Hawkeye will finally bite off more than he can chew.
Let's get it done.
I don't really want any characters to go hang out with Tony and Natasha in the afterlife, but on the other hand, if there was ever a character who deserved a big sacrifice to save humanity, it's probably Nick Fury. The super spy has always worked from the background, manipulating events to keep the Earth safe while the main Avengers got most of the focus. But Nick's clearly been making moves. He's secretly replaced himself with a Skrull so that he could build a space station, and that would only be necessary if the space station was supposed to be a big secret. Hey, speaking of secrets, what about Secret Invasion? I know Secret Wars is the secret title everyone likes, but Secret Invasion is a great storyline and promises to change up the entire MCU as we know it. That is, if we're able to get some big characters in it and not just a cast of C-listers who have no impact. Don't get me wrong, the acting cast is looking stacked right now for Secret Invasion, but it would be kind of disappointing if no big characters were secretly Skrulls, right? Anyways, maybe Nick Fury could sacrifice himself at the end of Secret Invasion, but in a way that nobody knows what he did. That would truly fall in line with the character to do something heroic that nobody knows about. Okay, for real, maybe Loki will die this time. How ironic would it be if he dies by Kang's hand doing something heroic? After all the other times he's faked his death, what if this is the time he does it for real and it ends up saving the entire universe? That would be kind of sweet, right? I don't want Loki to die right away though. I want him to at first reconnect with Thor and even join the Avengers, before perishing for real this time, as I think that would be a great character note to end on. Loki's charm and likability is either his best protector or his biggest liability right now. The MCU could be too afraid to ever kill off Loki permanently, but then on the flip side, his demise would truly make us hate Kang. Time will tell how this story unfolds though. Anyone else find it a little weird that Vision barely got so much as a mention in Multiverse of Madness? Yes, the focus was on Wanda and her children, but Vision was equally as important in Wanda's life. And it's not like he's dead anymore. White Vision now has all the memories of old Vision and flew off to parts unknown. That seems to signify he'll be back, but now that Wanda's gone, could we see Vision be broken down into spare parts? So much of his storyline has always been tied to Wanda, so now that she's gone, the MCU either has the chance to take Vision off the board by killing him for like the 12th time, or keep him around to follow a new character arc without Wanda. But as much as I love that second option, maybe Vision needs to be taken out. He's one of those all-powerful characters who you need to nerf in order to have a fair fight. It's why Vision was injured for most of Infinity War. Maybe the MCU wouldn't want to deal with the stress and would make it so that Vision gives his life to bring Wanda back, given some weird chaos magic and Mind Stone energy residual. I don't know, this is based off comics. Anything can happen. Rhodey has been through a surprising amount of drama for someone who's never technically been a main character.
Get out.
His paralysis in Civil War was one of the emotional cruxes of the movie, and although, like most dramatic beats, the MCU just kind of had Rhodey heal and get better later on, it still was a hugely defining character moment for him. But should we be worried that Rhodey would be a casualty of Kang or even Dr. Doom? Maybe Doom would make more sense here. I've been talking about Kang all this time, but Doom could be the main villain of Secret Wars as well. He's a tyrant leader who's after world domination, so it would make sense that Rhodey would have some American government assignment to take Doom down. Only with Doom being a master of suit building and technology, I don't think the tech-heavy war machine would fare well against him. Maybe Rhodey's demise would be the final nail in an all-out war against Latveria. The Guardians of the Galaxy as we know it are about to have their swan song in Phase 5. All the hype and initial marketing around it seems to suggest this is a goodbye, and while I'm sure we'll see some of the characters again in other films or in a potential new Guardians of the Galaxy film in the future, the core team of Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax, Rocket, Groot, and mostly Nebula are not going to be on adventures together anymore. It's been tough to determine just which characters are going to have happy endings and which ones aren't going to make it out alive in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
What were you thinking?
Star-Lord and Gamora? I think these two are pretty safe. I think they'll end up together, but I also don't see them as a couple who wants to retire on a nice planet somewhere and raise a bunch of little green Star-Lords. No, they seem like they would travel around the universe together. Or, on the other hand, maybe Star-Lord would want to revisit Earth to see everything he's missed since he was a child. Either way, I think they're safe. Drax, on the other hand, is a different story. He'd be the one whose death probably would hit the hardest since he's become a fan favorite, and now that his revenge mission against Thanos is over, maybe an epic sacrifice is in order. Plus, Dave Bautista has been very vocal about not wanting to do this anymore. Rocket is tough for me to decide on. On one hand, it's cheaper to pay Bradley Cooper to do voice work for a few more years, and Rocket is so beloved. It's tough. Which of the Guardians do you think won't make it out of Volume 3 alive? I think Bucky belongs on the Thunderbolts when that movie comes around, but is he too much of a hero for that team? I'm worried that the MCU would pull a Phil Coulson with Bucky, making him the likable leader of the ragtag group of Thunderbolts, and throughout the movie, this group just can't work together. But then, when Bucky sacrifices himself, that's when the team pulls together in honor of Bucky in order to save the day. Yes, it's a little derivative, but where else can Bucky's story really go?
I don't want to talk about it.
And the fact that Thunderbolts is the end of Phase 5 sort of suggests big things are going to happen in that movie. Maybe it would be a similar situation to what I explained about Rhodey. Maybe the Thunderbolts will be this Black Ops team sent to take down Dr. Doom in Latveria, but the team gets trapped there and things go horribly wrong. Then to show that Doom is a serious threat, he eliminates Bucky very publicly. The Eternals movie was criticized for having so many characters, and if they do return somewhere in Phase 5 or Phase 6, you have to think they'll trim some of their numbers to make everything a bit more manageable. So as of now, who would be the Eternal you would be most sad about losing? I think in terms of both power levels and interest, losing Druig would be the most impactful. His chemistry with Makari was a highlight, and I think losing him would be tough for her and the entire Eternals team. They all have a complicated relationship with Druig, and I think exploring what he meant to them after he's gone would provide some juicy character drama. Plus, his powers are great for normal humans, but in an actual fight, he doesn't contribute that much. Remember how he hit Sprite with a rock at the end of Eternals? One of my favorite random MCU moments. Plus, maybe Druig will be too busy playing the Joker to be a main character in the MCU anymore.
What?
Are there any main characters who haven't been introduced yet that will perish by Kang or Doom's hand? The Fantastic Four are probably safe, but there's dozens of mutants who could be introduced and then obliterated. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching CBR.